So, confession time. This is one of the specials that I've never actually watched before. To my knowledge, it was never shown on television with the other Rankin-Bass specials when I was growing up, probably because this is traditional limited animation and their stop-motion stuff is much more fondly remembered. It's also not based on a Christmas song like many of their more famous works, but it's actually based around a Charles Dickens novella that wasn't a Christmas carol. Surprising, I know. Heck, the special is even introduced by our primary narrator, Danny Thomas, introducing the story as an adaptation of Dickens's work. The story follows Crockett the Cricket, who moves into the house of one Caleb Plummer, a toy maker, and his daughter Bertha, just as her fiancé, Edward Belton, is called away to active duty in the English Navy. Months pass until they receive word that Edward had been lost at sea, an announcement that so shocks Bertha, she ends up going blind right there on the spot. Grief-stricken and unable to do anything but care for his daughter, Caleb goes deep into debt, eventually losing his home and shop, and having to take up residence in the toy factory of one Mr. Tackleton, who lets them live there for free provided he keep working for him for free, while Crockett does his best to try and find a way to improve his new family's situation. From the research I've done, it starts off as a pretty accurate, if very truncated, retelling of the novella's story. But the thing about it is, as the cricket is our main character, it doesn't take long for it to get a little bit more kid-friendly. Surprisingly, while it works in a lot of Christmas magic stuff that I'm pretty sure wasn't in the original book, like an army of toys coming to life to assist the cricket near the end, it does still follow the broad strokes of the story through to its conclusion. There are even some implications put forth by the special that I was rather surprised to see them take on, like a woman marrying a man to improve her and her family's situation rather than for love. You can also see a little bit of Scrooge in Tackleton, if only just. I admit the story didn't resonate very strongly with me, but it isn't badly told. It's told simply, lacking a lot of the Dickensian complexity of the novella, and the sort of stuff that's found in most Christmas Carol adaptations, honestly. But it's not horrible. There's just not a whole lot to keep someone invested. The story may not be badly told, but it's very plainly told, with most of its story beats and twists presented in the most obvious way that they could be. It makes the special a little bit boring to watch if you're there for a story, even though it's far more cohesive and flows a lot better than Rudolph did. This extends to the voice acting as well, which is much more solid than Rudolph's was, with the performances actually being very well handled, but at the same time it loses a lot of the over-the-top charm that we got with Rudolph.
Why weren't you at all?
We don't need a reminder, thank you. Despite it not having the fondly remembered stop-motion animation of other specials, the limited traditional animation here actually isn't bad, at least in comparison to the contemporary TV animation of its day. The character designs, though, I'm not really sure how to describe them. They're very simplified to be sure, and yet despite that, they still retain a lot of the cartoonish exaggeration. Tackleton in particular is pretty bad about that. Despite that, I can't say it's a design style I find all that appealing to my own tastes. And I don't hate simplistic design when it comes to animation. I was raised on the old Hanna-Barbera cartoons, which also rode that same line of having very simple, yet very stylized character designs. Really, I think the animal characters are the ones that have the most appealing designs, and it gives you a glimpse into what the special could have been if they'd have gone a bit more animal-centric with the cast when we got to this hidden animal tavern. Most of the background characters have button eyes, which I also find a bit more appealing than the wide eyes of the main characters, but again, that's just me. The special is also much more of a musical than Rudolph was. While Rudolph had a lot of songs, most of them were only a minute to a minute and a half long. Cricket on the Hearth has, counting reprisals, 9 songs through its runtime, all of them lasting 2 or 3 minutes. So they come pretty quick after one another, but there's not a huge variety to them. A lot of them are very slow, deep, gentle ballads that the characters are singing about their feelings for one another. And they are very heartfelt, but there's not really a ton of musical variety. The only song that really breaks up the musical monotony in this story proper is a song called Fish and Chips, which is basically a song that has nothing to do with anything else in the special, but at least it's a little bit upbeat. Everything else, Don't Give Your Love Away, Through My Eyes, Smiles Go With Tears, That Was Yesterday, they're all heartfelt ballads that one character is singing to another, and it gets very difficult to listen to as the special progresses, especially with how close together some of these songs are. With sound effects and background music, it's kind of the same situation as Rudolph, where they are conspicuously absent in quite a few scenes, but in this instance, it doesn't really work to the special's strengths, as it lacks the same sort of conversational atmosphere that Rudolph had. As a result, a lot of scenes that don't have sound effects feel really empty when they play out. At the very least, there's more background music to help set the mood, which is good, because as much as I don't mind the limited animation, without music, it would really feel like nothing was happening, especially with some of the more odd editing cuts made in the movie. Yeah, it's not hard to see why this one isn't really quite as well remembered as the other Rankin-Bass specials. It doesn't have nearly the same charm or memorability. While I think as a story it's a bit more well constructed than Rudolph, it just doesn't have the same wow factor that makes it stick in people's minds, like the awkwardly choppy stop-motion animation, or the over-the-top hamminess of its characters. It doesn't surprise me at all that this was mostly relegated to the dustbin of history, and was only really tossed onto DVDs as basically a B-side bonus for after you've already watched Rudolph, Frosty, and Santa in most of the other Rankin-Bass compilations. It lives on as a Christmas curiosity that I find more interesting for its source material than the special itself.